I heard them through the heating vent. Every word, crystal clear, floating up from the kitchen below like smoke signals announcing my betrayal. My daughter Patricia's voice, sharp as always. We need to move fast. She's still sharp enough to fight us. My son Stephen murmured something I couldn't quite catch. Then Trish again. I already called Dr. Morrison. He'll do the evaluation next week. Early stage dementia. That's what we need on paper. Once we have that diagnosis, we can file for conservatorship. I stood frozen in my bedroom, one hand gripping the dresser, the other pressed against my mouth to keep from screaming. The house I'd lived in for 40 years suddenly felt like a trap. This wasn't supposed to be my story. I wasn't supposed to be the mother who eavesdropped on her own children plotting against her. I was supposed to be in my garden right now, pruning the roses before winter came. I was supposed to be planning Thanksgiving dinner, deciding between pumpkin and pecan pie. Instead, I was standing above a heating grate, learning that my children thought I was senile, or at least wanted everyone else to think so. "What about Sophie?" Stephen asked. "She'll raise hell if she finds out. Sophie's a kid. She doesn't understand how this works. Besides, once we have control, we can give her enough for college and she'll be fine." My granddaughter, 20 years old, studying environmental science at Portland State. The only one who still came by without asking for money first. I sat down slowly on the bed, my mind racing. The smart thing would be to march downstairs right now and confront them. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of every other confrontation where I'd been dismissed, interrupted, told I was overreacting. Or maybe it was something darker, a need to know just how far they'd go. I'd given them everything. After their father died 15 years ago, cancer, taking him fast and mean, I'd worked 2 jobs to keep them in their schools, their activities, their lives. Patricia got her real estate license on my dime. Stephen's divorce, I paid for the lawyer. When Trish wanted to flip houses, I co-signed loans that nearly bankrupted me. And Stephen, sweet passive Stephen, I'd covered his child support when he got laid off, watched Sophie every weekend so he could find himself. I remembered Patricia's first scraped knee, Stephen's first day of kindergarten when he cried and I promised I'd never leave him. The promises we make to our children, they're supposed to be sacred, but what about the promises they make to us? The silent contract that says, "I'll grow up and take care of you because you took care of me." Apparently, that contract came with an expiration date. Their voices continued below, discussing me like I was a property transaction. Square footage, market value, liquid assets. I was 67 years old and being appraised. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my reading chair, the one my husband Thomas had bought me for my 50th birthday, and I made a decision. If they wanted to think I was losing my mind, I'd show them exactly that. I'd play their game, but by my rules. Because the thing about pretending to be confused, people tell you everything. They talk around you, over you, through you, like you're furniture. And furniture, it turns out, hears everything. The next morning, I started small. I asked Rosa, my housekeeper and the closest thing I had to a real friend, to help me move some boxes in the garage. Rosa had been coming twice a week for 10 years. She knew me, really knew me. As we worked, I told her what I'd heard. Rosa's face darkened. "Senora Maggie, this is evil. You should get a lawyer." "I will," I said quietly. "But first, I need to know everything. What they're planning, what they've already done. I need them to think they're winning." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Rosa understood survival. She'd left an abusive husband 30 years ago with nothing but her 2 daughters and a fierce determination to never be powerless again. "What do you need me to do?" "Just watch. Listen. Tell me what happens when I'm not in the room." That afternoon, Patricia arrived with groceries I hadn't asked for. She breezed in like she owned the place, which I suppose she thought she soon would. "Hi, Mom. I brought you some things. You mentioned you were running low on coffee." I hadn't mentioned anything. I'd been carefully avoiding her calls for a week. "Oh, that's nice, sweetheart." I made my voice just slightly vague. What day is it again? Patricia's eyes sharpened with interest. It's Tuesday, Mom. October 14th. October already? My goodness. Time just… I trailed off, looking out the window. Are you feeling okay? Her concern was practiced, smooth. She'd been rehearsing this. Oh, I'm fine. Just a little tired. Your father always said I worked too hard. I watched her carefully. He's coming home for dinner, isn't he? Patricia's face lit up like I'd handed her a winning lottery ticket. Dad's been gone for 15 years, Mom. Don't you remember? I let my face crumple, confused, upset. Of course. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. It's okay. She patted my hand, but her eyes were calculating. Maybe you should lie down. Rest a little. After she left, I heard her on the phone in the driveway. Her voice carried through the kitchen window I deliberately left open. She just asked when Dad was coming home for dinner. This is worse than I thought. Call Dr. Morrison. Tell him we need that appointment sooner. I watched her drive away, then I sat at my kitchen table and cried. Not because I was confused, but because pretending to be was the loneliest thing I'd ever done. Over the next week, I played my role carefully. I repeated questions. I forgot names of neighbors I'd known for decades. I wore mismatched shoes to the grocery store. The whispers started immediately. Poor Margaret Thompson. Such a shame. She used to be so sharp. Each performance was a tiny death, killing off the person I'd been in everyone's eyes. But I was building something too. Evidence. Credibility. A case. Rosa reported everything. Stephen came by one afternoon when he thought I was napping. She heard him in my office, going through my filing cabinet. He took papers, she told me. Bank statements, I think. Patricia scheduled the doctor's appointment without asking me, just informed me we had somewhere to be. Dr. Morrison was young, earnest, and clearly uncomfortable. He asked me questions. What year is it? Who's the president? Count backward from 100 by sevens. I answered some correctly, some wrong. I made it believable, not fully gone, just slipping. Early stage, like they'd coached him to find. Mrs. Thompson, he said gently, have you been experiencing any memory problems? Sometimes I forget things, I said quietly. Little things. Where I put my keys, whether I took my medicine. Patricia jumped in. She's also been confused about dates, doctor. And last week she left the stove on. We're really worried. I hadn't left the stove on. That was a lie. But I sat there, looking appropriately confused and elderly, while my daughter fabricated evidence of my incompetence. Dr. Morrison prescribed some tests. Cognitive assessments, brain scans. We'll get to the bottom of this, he promised. In the car, Patricia was triumphant. See, Mom? We're going to figure out what's going on and get you help. Help. That's what she called it. Taking everything I'd worked for and calling it help. That night, I called Mr. Harrison. He'd been Thomas's lawyer, handled our wills years ago. His voice was warm, familiar. Margaret, it's been too long. How are you? I need help, Donald, and I need you to not tell anyone, not even your secretary. I told him everything. The overheard conversation, Patricia's lies to the doctor, Stephen's theft of my financial documents, the conservatorship plan. As I talked, his silence grew heavier. Margaret, this is elder abuse. Financial exploitation. We can stop this now. File a police report. No, I said firmly. Not yet. I need to know everything first. How far they'll go, what else they're hiding. Can you do a quiet investigation? My accounts, my property, anything they might have already tampered with? Of course. But Margaret, this is dangerous. If they succeed in getting you declared incompetent, they won't. Because I'm not. And when the time comes, I'll prove it. But right now, I need to let them think they're winning. Donald was quiet for a moment. You always were the smartest woman I knew. All right. I'll start digging, but promise me, if this gets worse, you'll let me step in. I promise. The tests came back. Mild cognitive impairment, the neurologist said. Not dementia yet, but we should monitor closely. I could see Patricia's disappointment. Mild wasn't enough. She needed full-blown dementia for her plan to work, so she started creating it. I'd find bottles of my medication emptied into the sink. My calendar, which I'd kept meticulously for decades, suddenly had appointments I'd never made, then notes about how I'd missed them. Rosa found a notebook Patricia had left behind, full of concerning observations. Mom couldn't remember Sophie's birthday. Mom wore her shirt inside out. Mom called me by the wrong name. All lies, all documented, all building a case. I documented too. With Rosa's help, I installed small cameras, nothing obvious, just enough to catch the truth. Patricia going through my jewelry box, Stephen photographing my bank statements, the two of them in my living room, arguing over who'd get the house and who'd get the investment accounts. I put in more time, Patricia said. I'm the one who visits, who takes her to appointments. You're also the one who drove her to this state, Stephen shot back. Your constant pressure, your judgment. Maybe if you just let her live her life. Don't you dare blame me. You're here now, aren't you? You want your share. They weren't fighting over my care. They were fighting over the division of my assets while I was still breathing. Sophie came by one Sunday with soup she'd made in her dorm's communal kitchen. It was terrible, oversalted and somehow both burned and undercooked. But I ate every bite because it was made with love, real love, the kind that doesn't come with paperwork. Grandma, she said, sitting next to me on the porch swing. Are you okay? Dad and Aunt Trish keep saying you're sick, but you seem fine to me. I looked at my granddaughter. This fierce, honest girl who studied river ecosystems and cried over documentaries about climate change. She deserved the truth. Sophie, can you keep a secret? Always. I'm fine. Better than fine. But your father and aunt, they think I'm not. And I'm letting them think that because I need to know what they're planning. Her eyes widened. Oh my God, Grandma, that's like seriously dark. I know. But sometimes, sweetheart, you have to go dark to find the light. And I need you to trust me on this. Can you do that? She hugged me hard. What do you need me to do? Just be yourself. Visit me. Let them think you're just a kid who doesn't understand what's happening. But tell me everything you hear. Sophie became my spy. She was good at it, too. Young enough that Patricia and Stephen talked freely around her, assuming she was too busy on her phone to listen. She reported that Patricia had already contacted a realtor about the house's value, that Stephen had taken out a loan against his own house, probably counting on his inheritance to pay it off, that they'd agreed to put me in a memory care facility once they had conservatorship, something nice but affordable so they could preserve the assets. I was going to be warehoused, stored away like old furniture they'd deal with later. Through all of this, I kept playing my role. I shuffled more. I repeated myself. I stared into space. Each act of pretend confusion was armor, protecting me while I built my case. Donald Harrison worked quietly in the background, filing new documents, moving money into protected accounts, updating my will with instructions so specific that Patricia and Stephen would never be able to contest it. The breaking point came on a cold November morning. I found Patricia and Stephen in my kitchen at 7 a.m. They'd let themselves in with the key I'd never asked them to return. They had papers spread across my table, a pen ready. Mom, Patricia said with false brightness, we need you to sign some things. Just standard stuff, making sure everything's in order. I sat down and picked up the first document. It was a durable power of attorney, giving them control over everything. The second was a form to access my safe deposit box. The third was a quitclaim deed on my house. They wanted me to sign over everything, right there, while they thought I was too confused to understand what I was doing. What is this? I asked, my voice deliberately vague. Just paperwork, Mom. To help us help you. The doctor said you need help managing things, remember? The doctor had said no such thing. but they were counting on my supposed confusion to let this slide. I looked at Stephen, my son, who I'd rocked to sleep 1,000 nights, who I'd taught to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to treat people with kindness. "Do you really want to do this?" I asked him quietly. He couldn't meet my eyes. "It's for the best, Mom." "For who?" Patricia intervened, her voice sharp. "For everyone. Now please, just sign. We don't have all day." I picked up the pen, held it over the paper, and then I put it down. "No." "Mom." I said no. I stood up, and suddenly I wasn't shuffling anymore. My voice was clear, strong, exactly what it had always been. "I'm not signing anything. I'm not confused. I'm not incompetent, and I know exactly what you've been trying to do." The silence was deafening. Patricia's face went white, then red. "What are you talking about? I heard you. That day in October, through the heating vent, you planned this. The fake dementia diagnosis, the conservatorship, all of it. And I've been watching you ever since." Stephen found his voice. "Mom, you're not well. You're confused right now." "I'm not confused." The words came out louder than I intended, 40 years of teaching voice echoing through my small kitchen. "I have videos, Stephen, of you going through my files, of Patricia emptying my medications, of both of you discussing how much my house is worth while I'm still living in it. I have bank records, legal documents, and a very good lawyer who's been documenting everything." Patricia tried to recover. "You're being paranoid. We were just trying to help. Help me into a memory care facility so you could sell my house? Help me by lying to doctors? Help me by stealing?" I walked to the drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were Rosa's notes, screenshots from the cameras, transcripts of their conversations. "This is what help looks like, Patricia. Evidence, truth, protection." I handed them each an envelope. "These are from my lawyer. They explain that I've updated my will. Neither of you are executors anymore. Neither of you have power of attorney, and neither of you will receive this house or access my accounts. There's a trust, managed by Mr. Harrison, that will provide for Sophie's education and for Rosa's retirement. The rest will go to charity. Organizations that help victims of elder abuse." "You can't do this." Patricia's voice was shaking. "We're your children." "You were my children. But children don't do this to their parents. They don't lie, steal, or try to have them declared incompetent for money. You want to know what hurts the most? Not that you wanted my money. I could have given you money. If you'd asked, if you'd been honest, we could have worked something out. What hurts is that you were willing to take my dignity, my autonomy, myself. You were willing to make me into someone I'm not, someone diminished and helpless, just so you could profit from it." Stephen was crying. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't want. Trish said it was the only way." "Don't blame your sister for your choices, Stephen. You're 39 years old. You went through my private papers. You stood by while she lied to doctors. You chose this." Patricia grabbed the documents off the table. "We'll fight this. We'll get a real doctor to evaluate you. We'll prove." "Prove what? That I outsmarted you? That I had the presence of mind to document everything, to plan ahead, to protect myself?" "Good luck with that argument." They left. No goodbyes, no apologies that mattered. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood in my kitchen, hands shaking, heart pounding. Rosa came out from the bedroom where she'd been waiting. She held me while I cried. Not for what I'd lost that years ago. I cried for what I'd never really had, children who loved me more than they loved my money. Sophie arrived an hour later, having gotten a frantic call from Stephen. She found me on the porch, wrapped in Thomas's old cardigan, drinking tea. She sat down next to me, without speaking. "Finally," she said, "Dad called. Said you kicked them out. Said you're not giving them anything. That's true. Good. They don't deserve it." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry they're like this. You're not responsible for their choices, sweetheart. And don't worry, you're taken care of. College, graduate school if you want it, a house when you're ready. It's all in the trust. I don't care about that. Her voice was fierce. I care about you. Are you okay? I am now. And I was. For the first time in months, I could breathe without wondering who was plotting behind my back. Want to help me make dinner? I'm thinking pasta. Only if I can actually cook it this time. That soup was tragic. We laughed, and it felt like healing. The legal letters went out. Patricia tried to contest the will, but Donald Harrison's work was airtight. My cognitive evaluation from an independent neurologist showed perfect mental acuity. The videos were damning. Her lawyer advised her to drop it before it became a criminal case. Stephen never fought. He sent one letter, apologizing, saying he understood. I didn't respond. Some relationships, once broken, stay that way. I sold the house. It was too big anyway, too full of ghosts, both good and bad. I bought a small cottage near the coast, close to Sophie's university. Rosa came with me, though I told her she didn't have to. Someone needs to make sure you don't burn your own soup, she joked. She became more than my housekeeper. She became my family. Sophie visited every weekend. We'd walk on the beach, collect shells, talk about her classes and her dreams. Sometimes she asked if I missed them, Patricia and Stephen. I miss who I thought they were, I'd tell her. But you can't miss people who never existed. I joined a book club, made new friends who liked me for me, not for what I could give them. I took painting classes. I learned to make sourdough bread. I lived my life in a way I'd never quite managed, when I was always taking care of someone else's needs first. 1 year after the confrontation, I got a card from Stephen. Inside was a simple message. I understand now what I didn't then. I'm sorry. I hope you're happy. I put it in a drawer. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Some people can't change, but some can. Maybe Stephen was trying. It didn't change my will, didn't bring him back into my life, but it was something. Patricia never apologized. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to California, sold her business, started over. Sometimes I wondered if she thought about that day in the kitchen, if she regretted any of it. Then I'd remember that day I'd overheard her say, "We need to move fast," like I was a deal to be closed, and I'd know it didn't matter. Her regret or lack of it couldn't touch me anymore. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was accepting that I'd raised people capable of it, that somewhere along the way, despite my best efforts, they'd learned that love was transactional, that family was negotiable, that money mattered more than dignity. I still don't know where I went wrong. Maybe I gave too much. Maybe I taught them that my needs were always secondary. Maybe I modeled self-sacrifice so well they thought it was my only value. But I also raised Sophie's father, and he'd raised her. And she understood that kindness wasn't weakness, that generosity wasn't stupidity, that family was about showing up, not cashing in. So maybe I hadn't failed completely. Rosa and I were drinking coffee on my new porch when she asked, "Do you regret it? Pretending to be sick?" Some people might say it was manipulative. I thought about it. I regret that I had to. I regret that my children put me in a position where the only way to protect myself was to pretend to be someone I wasn't. But do I regret knowing the truth? Never. Because now I know what they valued, what they were willing to do. And I got out before they could actually hurt me. "You were always the smart one," Rosa said. "No," I corrected. "I was always the hopeful one. I hoped they'd be better. I hoped I'd taught them to be better. But when hope didn't work, I got smart." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the ocean waves roll in. Constant, predictable, beautiful. The life I'd built here was smaller than the one I'd had. Fewer people, quieter days, but it was mine, fully mine, in a way nothing had been before. No one was planning around me, plotting behind my back, or waiting for me to decline so they could profit. I was just Margaret Thompson, living by the sea, painting bad watercolors, and loving the people who actually loved me back. The cottage needed some work. The fence sagged, the garden was overgrown. But I had time now. Time to fix things slowly, to make choices without wondering who it would benefit. Sophie came over one Saturday with gardening gloves and a determination to fix up Grandma's place. We worked in the sun, pulling weeds, planting bulbs that would bloom in spring. She told me about a boy in her ecology class, about her plans to study in Costa Rica next summer, about the future stretching out before her like an open road. "You know," she said, sitting back on her heels, "I used to think you were so strong, taking care of everyone, always being there. But now, I think you're stronger, because you chose yourself. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, Sophie. That's what I want you to remember. Especially as a woman, we're taught that our value is in our sacrifice, how much we give up, how much we endure. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say enough. And mean it." She hugged me, dirt and all. "I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. More than they ever let me show." That night, I wrote in the journal I'd started keeping. Not for evidence this time, just for me. I wrote about the life I'd lived, the mistakes I'd made, the lessons learned too late. I wrote about Thomas and how much I missed him, how he would have been heartbroken by what our children had become. But I also wrote about gratitude, for Rose's friendship, for Sophie's loyalty, for this second chapter that I'd fought to claim. The sun set over the Pacific, painting the sky in oranges and purples. I sat on my porch with a blanket and tea, watching the light fade. Tomorrow I'd wake up and live another day exactly as I chose. No one would question my decisions or check my mental state or discuss my worth in dollar amounts. I was 67 years old, and for the first time in decades, I was free. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you. If this sounds familiar, if you've felt used or diminished or trapped by people who should love you, know this: you can leave. You can choose yourself. You can build something new. It won't be easy. There will be guilt, grief, and moments when you question everything. But on the other side of that pain is peace, the kind that comes from living authentically, loving honestly, and protecting yourself without apology. I'm Margaret Thompson. I was a wife, a mother, a teacher, a woman who gave everything and almost lost herself in the giving. But now, I'm just Margaret. And that, finally, is enough.